Steinfeld in conversation with Edebiri.
Us in conversation. Instantly, I'm like, so how's everybody doing? Okay, well, how's it going, Hailee?
It's going so good. I'm so happy to be here with you, with all of you. Thanks for coming.
Great. Hello. I'm so excited to be speaking with you. I've got a sheet of paper that's got questions. But also I just want to talk to you. And I'll start off by saying that we first met on a show called Dickinson. Where Hailee plays Emily Dickinson and is phenomenal, both as an actor and as a producer on it. And we're around the same age. I feel like I had this feeling of almost growing up with you and seeing you grow, but I was so impressed by the skill that you had on the show and how we were around the same age, and I was like, I'm working with somebody who is a professional with a capital P.
Thank you.
But you just had this knowledge and this prowess that I was so moved by. And I guess first question, here it is, well, lead up for the first question. How, when you're like starting off at such a young age, what was that like, just like coming into your own? Is that too big of a question?
Yeah, next question.
Great. What's your sign?
Oh, we can talk about that all day. You know, it's such a wild thing. I've had a lot of moments recently where I remember that I'm not 19 anymore. And while I'm only 26, I feel like it's not often that I take a step back and reflect on what I have accomplished in my career and how young I actually really was when I did start.
Yeah. And how young you like still are.
Right.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yes.
Because we're both. Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy.
It is a wild thing, but I think as far as, you know, what was that like growing up and working in this world, in a way I don't know any different. It's home for me. You know, when I was younger, I always was looking for a sense of belonging. I didn't have a traditional schooling experience. I was homeschooled. Yeah. My brother was always on sports teams, and my friends were always participating in some sort of team activity, and I was yearning for that. And I guess part of the reason why I had such a hard time was because my attention span was just, whoo. I mean, I'm talking about myself when I was about 7 or 8, so a little bit of, you know.
Yeah, you can give yourself a little grace there.
Yeah. But I was constantly jumping to different sports, different types of dance, different hobbies, trying to figure out where I found that sense of belonging. And it wasn't until I found this idea of performing and entertaining, and in that and in what we do, I get to go from one project where I'm horseback riding to learning archery to learning the likes of Emily Dickinson and living in a world that is so profound in that sense as far as the writing goes. So I don't know, I guess as far as what was it like, it's home for me. It's what I love. I have found myself through all of this, and I feel like I continue to. Yeah, did that answer your question?
I think it answered my question. You talking about sort of that like attention span thing, I feel a lot of kinship with that. Just as somebody who like, I look back and I'm like, okay, definitely maybe a little bit of undiagnosed ADD as a child, but also like,
We can get into that.
and yeah, you know, now, okay, so my journey. But there's also something where I feel like I have this just wanting to learn, and like, I don't know if you resonate with this, feeling so lucky when you're like, whoa, I'm young, and I'm finding this thing that's like, it's just making my brain go, and there's also different avenues even within this career. I can explore myself creatively through acting or through writing and producing or through music. Like, there's just so many different permutations of
100%.
Yeah.
I also feel like every time I work on a project, there's always someone that I meet in some role that I was not as familiar with before meeting this person and being inspired by how they do their job. And I find an outlet within what they do. And it you know, I feel like you want to shoot for the stars, right? But you also want to master the level that you're at before you move on from that.
Yeah.
So I tend to get very overly excited about a lot of things. And I think about working on Dickinson and working with you and seeing you go from the writer's room to on set. And, you know, that for me was such an incredible experience and something, I mean, unlike anything I've ever done producing the show and being in the show, I learned so much and I have such a deeper understanding and appreciation for what the hell it takes to make something that you're proud of and that is great and that resonates with people. It's not easy, and yeah.
There's a lot of TV, and a lot of it is good, and also it's insane to make a show. Like, I feel like when you, or a movie, just any sort of creative endeavor where you're like, it's over, and you're like, 400 people just worked on this thing for 3 months, and it's gonna be like 90 minutes. Cool. Yeah. But it's just insane. I mean, also Spider-Verse has just come out.
You were great in that, by the way.
Hey, you were great in that.
Oh, shoot, thank you.
Oh, you know, my little bandmate or whatever. Okay. But that is like such a miraculous act of collaboration. At the premiere, Chris and Phil were talking, and they were like, yeah, we have 1,000 animators. I don't know how many people are in this room. I think like that's like how bad I am at numbers. Like 250, maybe? I don't know. But like 1,000, we gotta count? No, great. But it's just insane to think about. Did you always want to do voiceover work? Is that something that...
It was always something that I was intrigued by.
Yeah.
I absolutely had misconceptions of voiceover acting.
What did you think it was?
I thought it was as simple as you're in a booth and you're reading lines.
Yeah.
Which, okay, maybe to a degree. You get to be in your sweatpants and you get to like dimly light the room and, you know, set the vibe. But it is incredibly taxing. I mean, you don't, you know, I think you take for granted being on your own 2 feet and in incredible wardrobe that was made by the most talented people for months, maybe years on end, being on an incredible set or an amazing location with, you know, everything happening in real time. That is something that, you know, I guess I maybe took for granted in that moment because I'm there and I'm on my own. The first film, Into the Spider-Verse, I didn't have the opportunity to record with any of the other actors. It wasn't until we were doing press for the film that I found out Shameik Moore plays Miles Morales. We were doing an interview together, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I had the best time I was in with," and he starts listing all the people he's in every scene with. And I'm sitting there like, what? And the minute that interview was over, I was like, how do I get in the room with people? I didn't know that was an option. So I thought, if this ever happens again, I gotta be in the room with people, and I had the privilege of being in the booth with Shameik, Issa Rae, Shea Wingham, and it made the world's difference because it's like you can at least feel like you're getting something
play
back,
off of
right?
each other.
And I've said this before, but I'll say it again, the talent in that film is so beyond that. Even if they're not in the room and I'm lucky enough to have their read in my ears, it's as if they're in the room, but they're not, so it's nice when they are.
Yes. It is like a really crazy difference though. Also, like when you think about how much VO you record where there's just nothing, like there's just the script.
Right.
And then you start getting the animatics, and then you maybe start getting a few sketches, and then you get the animation, like how much you really are building with just your voice.
Totally.
Yeah.
I also feel like I had so much more confidence coming into the second one because I understood the process and I knew what I was getting into. It was the same team with some beautiful new additions, and yeah, and even something like Spider-Verse, that it's so action-packed, if you will. So that's another thing. Like, you can't portray swinging from buildings and all that by standing still. So you gotta really get into it. It's a funny thing.
Yeah. Is that like, it's just of I don't know, interesting challenges and like the ways that those can help us learn. Have there been any sort of like recent, I don't know, fun challenges that you've been like, oh, here's like an unexpected lesson. Wow, my questions are like so
Good.
Oh!
No, any unexpected challenges?
See, now that you're
That's a
answering
pretty
it,
bad
like
question.
it's not big.
Yeah.
That's just a massive question.
Let's see.
Climate change, how would you solve it? Like,
Well, I've got a lot to get into. We all have to cover. Big unexpected challenge. I guess that being sort of the last thing, we did our last recording session for Spider-Verse. I mean, the movie came out.
Wait, yeah,
What?
no,
Did you too?
mine was really
Like-
recent.
like
3 weeks ago. Yes, before it came out.
Yeah, that
yes.
was wild.
Yes.
I mean, I feel like I saw the filmmakers just like, bless them, they all look awesome, but that just felt like they were aging themselves. They were just like, we are 3 weeks away from this thing.
There's a boy in the corner about to run the reels. Like,
Exactly. No, but I guess just one thing I feel like I've truly taken away from that experience, and to be honest, Dickinson as well, the amount of perfectionists that were involved in those projects. I think with Spider-Verse, normally we'll go in, we'll do our part. Yeah. They go into post-production. We might hear from them once or twice. Sometimes. And then that's it, right? And sometimes it's a little inconvenient to go in and have to do a couple hours of ADR. You feel like you did what you did and the freaking plane ruined your whole performance. But I've now looked at going back again and again and again as just an opportunity to keep beating what you've done and keep improving. And the fact that these guys went up until the last second, till there were people that were pulling them away physically from continuing down the road of perfecting. I have so much respect and admiration for that. I think that's something I'll forever take with me. Not looking at something as an inconvenience, but an opportunity rather.
Wow, I'm like, I need to change my mindset. Oh my God. That was a good one. When you look back at all of the roles that you've done, is there...
It's a big one, I feel it.
Is there one that you feel like it met you in the moment?
Ooh. Yeah. Yeah, a few. I think the first one that comes to mind, I did a film called Edge of 17.
Woo! If you haven't seen Edge of 17, I'm so sorry. That is like actually like a banger of a film. I'm seeing some guys that are like, yeah, I'm going to check it out. It's on my watch list. Rent it tonight. You're phenomenal in that movie.
So much.
You're phenomenal.
Wow.
I love that movie so much. I really do, though. I really do.
I'm really holding back from like freaking out about the bear. We'll talk
I'm
about that in a second. Okay?
I got the sheet.
Nope. You don't have the sheet?
The sheet.
2 seconds while I'm here. You are such a phenomenal talent, and again, I had the opportunity. As I felt like I was, for the first time wearing multiple hats with Dickinson, I got to see you do that and do it with such grace. And I know that experience, and I'm sure others that you've had, was challenging. And again, so much grace and so much passion through it all. And all you wanted to do was make it the greatest that you could possibly make it. That show would not be what it was without you and your.
post you like the Tribeca conversation.
Tribeca conversation.
I appreciate it.
And not to mention too, really quickly, I'm not avoiding your question, I did forget it, but we'll get back there. I and I had so much fun. I literally, the longest videos on my phone are like 7, 8, 9 minute long videos, and it's me and Io. It was the Io and Hailee show. In between takes of Dickinson, and it kind of, should we give them a little?
I mean, we could give them a little.
Like, it was kind of, it would go like this, right? So we'd set up the camera. And we just, it had a lot to do with the fact that we were like, we just wanted a little escape from work, right?
Yeah, of course.
So we'd come into, we'd get in front of the camera and we'd introduce ourselves.
Hi.
Hailee's the Io and Hailee show.
Yeah.
So Io, you know what I mean?
No, but the thing about it.
For me personally.
No, I know what you know. I do understand though.
Faster?
Well, the thing, no, I know it's too slow. But the thing is, if it's getting bigger, do you know what I'm saying? No, but if it is, there's no way that, you know what I mean, just the scope that you're seeing it through could fit that sort of, and it is getting smaller, you're right. But I'm not necessarily right, you know what I mean?
Well, no, but you're not necessarily wrong.
So imagine after 9 minutes. Process is sort of just like eating snacks, or just sort of like bonding with somebody heavily, and then being like, we maybe both were in separate states of psychosis, but like together. I do remember my question though, because I remember I asked it, and I was like, oh, wait, this might be like my first good question, which was. Of all the roles that you've done, do you feel like you have one that met you in the moment? And
Yes.
you mentioned the banger of a film that we're all gonna rent tonight and blow up age 17, unless it's available on some sort of ethical streaming service. Ethical streaming service? What am I talking about?
Yeah, so I would say age 17, and for a multitude of reasons, but I felt like, I guess I felt very similar to, well, I'll tell you guys a story. I've never talked about this before. Has anyone ever heard of a man named Larry Moss? Okay. He is, to me, like the godfather of acting, of acting coaches, and of acting in general. This man changed my life. So Jim Brooks, who produced the film, well, I'll go back. When I was about, I want to say like 14, 15 years old, I discovered Larry Moss, and I was like, oh my God, I've got to take one of his classes. He was only teaching in New York at the time, I believe. Or maybe he was teaching in LA, but I wanted to make this harder for myself for the sake of the story, probably, because I knew I'd be here at 26, so it was very hard. So I thought to myself, I gotta get to New York, I've got to take this class. It was like a,
Like an intensive?
yeah, one of those. What do they call them when they're like, is it an intensive?
Workshop?
Well, something like that.
Workshop, masterclass, or intensive?
All of the above.
Great.
So it was a few weeks long, and you get he provides the material, you get paired with the same parts, the whole thing. So I thought, I've got to figure out how to get to New York without my mom knowing, get back, take this class, I'm gonna become the best actor ever, and no one's gonna know that I was ever on.
Perfect.
So I went on to, I remember, because that's what it was. I went and I bought his book, and I tried reading it, and it was just too much. I couldn't understand it, I couldn't break it down, and it was too much.
No, because you were like 14.
Well, that, yeah. So, but anyway, I went onto his website, and I tried to, sign up for the mailing list or whatever. Put my mom's email in there, so I blew my own cover very quickly. And I remember my mom saying to me, like, let's do it. Like, we can do this. And she was my mom, and my parents, everyone around me has always been so incredibly supportive. I don't know why. I thought maybe it was just for the sake of the story of Tribeca. I didn't know.
No, but I think that I look back at moments too where I'm like, and they were all against me. My back was against the wall. They all wanted to see me dead. You know? It's like literally not true. It just couldn't have been true. Like, yeah, horrible shit. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. Long story short, this wasn't much of a But also,
story.
you were 14 and you found something that you wanted to do and you were passionate about, and that's like scary.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Thank you. I'm feeling real seen right now.
Hey, come on.
this conversation a long time ago. I'm in the room, somehow you're 14, I'm like, tell your mother! No, but so I figured, okay, when I turn 18, I'll do this the right way. Everyone can know, it won't be a secret, I'll do it. I can figure this out then, and I'm gonna make this happen. So I had just turned 18 when I read for Edge of 17. I got the job. It was the weirdest thing, actually. I had my audition, and it was going really well. It's nothing worse than when it feels like it's actively going horribly. And I felt this was going good. It was good. And I was left with like a comment. I was in the room with Kelly from Craig and Jim Brooks, and they said something to me about like, this is not it. And I'll remember if I think long enough, but I don't have time for that. It was something like, alluding to what's gonna happen in 2 weeks when we start shooting. And I was like, I walked out and I called my agents. I was like, I think I might have just, I think I got it. Like, but I don't know, and I don't wanna be so sure. I'd never had it in the room in real time. Like that, it was the most bizarre thing. You don't normally like go when you're in like agony for a couple weeks before you hear anything.
They're like, hey, maybe show up on set. We'll see if we can fit you in the costume.
Yeah, that's the scenario. Yeah, exactly that. So that was that, and then a couple weeks after, I got a call from Jim Brooks asking if I would be okay to coach with Larry Moss on the project. And so my dream of working with Larry Moss came full circle. And I was 18. I would have tried to find my way to New York at that point anyway, but it happened, and it was the most incredible experience. And I'll tell you, the one thing that I learned from this man was to trust in myself in a way that I don't know that I ever had before that project. And I was coming into my own as a human being, and I felt like I had a breakthrough personally, emotionally, and mentally, but professionally, most importantly. And I think I also, that character allowed me to let out a side of some teen angst that I might have just never acknowledged. So that I was very grateful for. But the writing was so good, and you know, I never felt like I had to fill in any of the blanks. I just had to show up and do my job, and I did the work, and I trusted that I'd done the work, and I got to show up and be free of feeling like I was tied to something, because I think in the past I've had a tendency of doing that, of not letting go of that script, and like that was like my everything, and if anybody like looked at it, I would be like, oh, my world is over. But now I had this, it was just so, I was so liberated, and I felt so free going into that. And I think that's what the character sort of required, this like, that freedom, that ability to like just live and be and figure it out and mess up and be angry and be sad and be happy and then be all of that at once. And I was feeling all of that as it was happening. So yeah, that was long-winded.
No, I liked it a lot. And what you said too about like trust really stuck out to me, because I feel like that's something that I'm personally like learning now, like this now getting my like therapy vibes, but like but that there's no such thing as like I feel like I often grew up and you know, when you grow up as like you're like a high achieving kid who's like a good kid and you like do well and like the adults are proud of you and the work you do is good, like it's very easy to get into this binary of like, well, there is right way and wrong way, like there's a way that I can do things that things go well and I have to keep going well, or like not. And I feel like when you're coming into your own, like when you're able to trust yourself and be like, yeah, no wait, I'm like, there's like a sound, solid person up here. Like, I can live. And also like, in my work, that extends to my work as well. I can just throw down and the work will it will prove itself. Yeah, it's very, 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 why are you like empowering me? Oh my goodness. Okay, ready? Ham-fisted pivot. Because I can't think of a way to do a gentle segue. Well, you're not only a phenomenal actor, but you also make incredible music. How do you feel like your music has like allowed you to express yourself creatively in ways that maybe are, you know, different from the acting or tie in? Maybe, I don't know. There's me clearly like, I don't make music.
How does it work?
So how does it, yes, tell me how it is to sing song.
But do you feel like
Are you like the type of person when you have a character, you like make a playlist for them? Like, do you find yourself like musically in other areas of your life?
Yeah, that's actually something I used to take a lot of time doing, until I started making projects where music was its own character and was such a huge part of the film that I felt like I was sort of walking into these already made playlists. And I guess it just became less about sort of listening to one specific playlist and only that playlist, and being conscious and aware of what I was listening to around the time that I'm working on a certain thing, because I sometimes can find certain things to be distracting for whatever reason. But yeah, I guess it. I've had moments where I feel like one informs the other in a way that I might not have expected. I felt like after I did Dickinson, after spending as much time as I had embodying this fearless writer, this young woman who would go back and forth on hoping, praying, wishing that just someone would read her words, and then also having the security of knowing that no one would ever. Writing that way, I had never done that before Dickinson, and after we wrapped the last season, I went back home and I had this time sort of designated to being in the studio and to writing, and I was looking forward to it in a way that I'd never before.
I remember we FaceTimed once, and you were like in the studio. You were like in like, maybe you were in your house, but there was the setup, and I was like, oh, like she's all right, yeah, okay, let's go. Just a minute. This was like COVID times.
So
This was after the season.
what is our FaceTime about?
I mean, probably I do.
Oh my god, I actually remember.
You do remember. You do remember. I remember.
We'll talk about it later. It's I had started recording at home during COVID, and that was again another weird tie-in to Dickinson, where I was like suddenly in the comfort of my own home, and I had created this small space that I felt like I could write as if no one might hear it. Oh, there are some people in this room that are gonna understand. But yep, we'll get there, people. But I guess just, and I'm curious to know what you think as far as how you approach writing, because I feel like there has to be a level of fearlessness, right? Like, I think with my songwriting, I've also realized that, where before I might have written in a way that I felt like when I had performed the songs, it would feel like I was performing the way that I know to perform in front of the camera. It's far more vulnerable in a sense. They're both equally very vulnerable, but it's me and it's my words. It's not yours. It's not Elena's. It's not somebody else that I'm sort of taking on and able to identify in ways with you might not ever know.
Yeah.
So it's scary and it's daunting, but I do feel like Dickinson had a huge impact on me when it came to approaching writing differently.
Just even thinking about the parallels of like Emily's life and like those early lockdown days.
Totally.
Wild.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody once said this to me, and I think about it a lot, which is like, comedians want to be musicians and musicians want to be comedians. Which is like, comedians are constantly being like, you'll never guess how vulnerable I'm being. Here are the 17 disgusting things I did in my life, But it's like, it's actually a wall. And we wish that we had the ability to like, great, you're gonna be here for 3 minutes, it's like silent and just like feeling and like connecting with me, and maybe you're not hearing my words exactly, you're hearing some sort of poetry. There's a mix of like, what you're intaking and also what you're projecting. And anyway, we're gonna be here together for like 3 minutes. That to me, every song is 3 minutes. And then like let's meet again at the end of it. But I find that vulnerability like just a different type of vulnerability that I'm like so so impressed by. But then I have friends who are musicians who are like, wow, how do you do that? Like I would like, how do you just like keep chasing laughs? Like how do you keep like looking at people and just like wanting to like see the whites of people's eyes? Like I'm like, I don't know. Probably something is wrong up here. I don't know. But when you're talking about just writing, I feel like it's to me the most contradictory like part of my whole career. Like with writing, I feel absolutely there's a fearlessness and there's definitely like arrogance. Like if I send you something and you have notes, I'm like, do you though? Do you really have notes? But also I'm deeply petrified of writing and of like the writing process. Like no writer likes writing. I think writers like having had written already. I think it's great when you're like, oh, thank God, good, a page that took 10 hours. You know, it's like, it can be grueling, but it's also like weirdly one of the most rewarding things, like because of that. Like I feel like, but also to what you were saying, like that's I think what vulnerable things feel like it's taxing. And it's because you're getting somewhere, and that's why it's hard. But it's also such a nice release, and I feel like you often are like, okay, I'm a little bit proud of myself. All right, yeah, 100%. Yeah. Well, time for another question. Okay.
I just can't wait to see if we both are remembering the same FaceTime call.
I really are. Yeah. What a time. What an absolute time to have been alive. Nice. Okay, when you think of, yes, great. When you think of, let me start. Okay. When I think of you, I think of a lot of fierce, strong women in like different phases of their lives, but also like you as a fierce, strong woman. And again, we met on such a specific experience, but I feel like I had such an idea in my head of what it like, yeah, I know what it's gonna be like when you meet the lead actress of a show. I know. Yeah, by you, I'm like, we're the same age. I don't know what I'm talking about. But I was like, holy, can I swear? Are there children here? Somebody saying yes like that makes me know there are children there. Okay. Holy shit, you know? Like this person is like so just ready to work and ready to make the best thing possible and like do whatever it takes and set such a high bar for themselves that it's hard for that not to trickle down. I feel like that of the things I've been learning, it's like, especially on a show, it really, like the energy is top down, and like the person who's like being number one on a call sheet is hard. It's a lot of time, it's a lot of energy, and like to be bringing such a high standard of work and also like being a person, just very cool, and props, and I want you to know that. But anyway, I think of you and I think of like fierce, strong women throughout, you know, just different stages of their lives, from Edge of 17 and Dickinson to why am I blanking on the name of the movie? True Grit. Which also, I told you this story, right? That I saw True Grit when I was like 12 with my dad.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, but I was like, I think I'm gonna be an actor too. My dad was like, girl, you're going to middle school. See you later. But are there women in your life, be that in your personal life or through that whose work you've consumed that are like, you know, you just like you return to them, you know?
You know, I go back, well, I do have some incredible women in my life.
Shout out your mom.
Shout out to my mom.
I love your mom.
I love my mom. She is the best, and I truly, I mean, I think back to early days of, I've almost been like wanting to ask her because I've thought about this so often lately. We spent years just driving around Los Angeles, going to audition. Every pilot season we'd pack in 3, maybe 4 auditions a day. It was from that to then, you know, coaching sessions and vocal lessons and dialect lessons and more auditions and more auditions and more auditions. And I mean, I got an agent because my mom took my headshots in our backyard and sent them out to 10 different agencies. One called, and it was a print agent, so I didn't really get there. But I often think like I don't know what it was. I mean, I guess it was my drive and my determination that my mom saw, because I sometimes I'm like, oh, why did you not give up at any point? Like, years went by. I didn't work for, I mean, I started when I was 8. I got my first job at 13. I mean, and that was all my mom. My mom was on all those breakdown services, finding every possible anything, all because I wanted that, and she knew that, and that's why she did it. And yeah, I mean, she always taught me to be persistent and prepared and passionate, but if she weren't those things for me, I wouldn't be here. So it starts with my mom for sure. And I also think that I've had the wonderful opportunity of working with some incredible women that I am so forever inspired by and moved by and motivated by. You know, from Kelly Freeman Craig to Elena Smith, you, my girl. There's just so many, and there's so many that I just, yeah, like I said before, I'll be on a job even if it's just for a few days, a few weeks, whatever it is. There's always someone, if not a handful of people that I feel like watching them do what they do makes me love what I do. And again, I think that goes back to what I was saying before. It's like that sense of home. We're a group of people that love what we do. It's not easy, and if it weren't for us showing up every single day, it would never happen. Therefore, we have to band together, and we've got to, you know, I think that's why the first film I ever made, True Grit, I worked with people that were, I mean, any word that I can think of feels like an understatement, but just beyond passionate about the work that they were doing. They came to work every day to create the most beautiful outcome possible, and they would go home to their families, they'd come back, they'd do the same thing, they'd have the most fun doing it. I never remember anybody taking anything too seriously. Maybe that's just because I certainly wasn't. But that was something that I feel was sort of instilled in me at that point, because that's what I was around. That was my first job, that was my introduction, and I knew that if I could take that energy to anything that I work on, then maybe it doesn't turn out great, but at least we had a good time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I feel like also, even there's movies and TV shows that I just love, like, and they might not be like, you know, critical hits or whatever, but it's like there's things that give you comfort, that give you joy, that there's ways that work can resonate with people, I think, when you just, I don't know, when you just have intention and just want to make something good and want to make something with, I don't know, with goodness. The director and co-creator of The Bear, Chris Storer, directed 2 episodes of Dickinson, and that's where I met him. It's just really funny, like, thinking of that and thinking of like him on set, where he's just like,
How is he different?
he is.
Break it down.
I mean, okay, I will say Chris now is like cool.
In a way that I'm like, that he wasn't before.
I'm like, you were not cool like 4 years ago. Like, you are wearing like suits to set. Like, you kind of got like a sweat, but like in a casual way. I can't describe it. It's like, that's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? He's got like a coolness about him. But he was also like so, he's very impatient with like bad attitudes. Like, he's very impatient with like if there's no collaboration. But because he's Chris and he's like a 7 foot tall like skater boy from Chicago, he's like, hey buddy, how's it going? All right, checking in. Like that's like him being like stern. Yeah, like that's him being like, hey, cut that out. You know, like if anybody's what sounds a bit loud. You know, like he's so Midwestern and like kind in that way. But it's I know he's like having a blast, which makes it so much fun. Where I'm like, whoa. I mean, that's also the other thing about making stuff where you're like, huh, I'm working on somebody's like dream thing. Cool. Okay. All right. Nice. Yeah. Are you? What? You sort of start to ask a question and then stop. There's just so many questions one can ask. No, but I'm nervous. I want to ask a question. All right. Would you ever want to find yourself like behind the camera?
I had a joke, but it wasn't funny enough. Oh no. Do I ever want to find myself there? That's a perfect setup. Yeah, I mean, I think about it all the time. That wasn't a joke. I think about it all the time. But again, I got to dip my toes into producing. I feel like I'd love to explore more of that. I would love to, I say this, but then I feel like I might get there and feel otherwise, but I was gonna say I would love to produce something that I'm not in, to understand that role in its entirety on its own.
Yes.
But then I feel like if I'm producing something, I'm gonna be like so into it that I'm gonna be like, I have to be in this. But I've thought about that a lot. You know, that was such an exciting thing for me with Dickinson. I did not understand what I was taking on before I took it on. And luckily I had 3 seasons to do it, so by the end there, I really, I had my footing there. But
What's like a tricky balance also when you're like both in something and out of something? I feel like that's, and also, I don't know, Dickinson is like, you're also like a lead in that. And like, I feel like my experiences where I've been doing both, you know, double duty or whatever, I'm not a lead. I'm popping in with like a hat on and then I'm leading. Character work, that's acting, so we just do that. But acting. But it's a lot. It's a lot, and it's like very tiring.
it is.
Mentally, your actual time, where you're like, what? We're doing calls at six in the morning before anybody shows up to set, and we're staying after, and we're just doing more calls. We're rolling more calls. Got it.
Yeah.
Yes, and I have to also know my lines for tomorrow, and probably I should start studying for the day after because I want to know what's ahead. Like your brain is going in and out.
100 to 100 places. Yeah, it's it was it was challenging to say the least, but I felt like I understood the importance and the beauty in embracing the chaos, and sort of learning to love that, because this job, this world that we live in, the products that we end up with aren't possible if it's not for those people that get there before we get there and don't go home until after we're home, and even in bed for a few hours. So to be on that side and understand what it takes, again, the level of respect and appreciation just grew immensely. I think the thing I also had to learn though was to, after a certain point, I had to learn how to shut off a part of the job in order to focus on the other, which I think is like
100% know what you mean.
Okay, so I'm a pretty good multitasker. I do take a lot on at once, but sometimes I do find it hard to believe that you can do more than one thing great.
Yes.
And so that's why I am so excited about the idea of producing something and understanding what that means to show up just as a producer. I feel like I learned from some of the best with Dickinson, and maybe, just maybe, the workload would feel a little bit lighter if I was just producing something. Maybe.
have a feeling it might.
But again, I would be able to be there in a way that I haven't done that yet. So, but yeah, the answer to your question is yes. I absolutely would love to explore further down the line. This world is so full of so many opportunities that I would love to.
It's like, I don't know, life and career can be like so long. Like there are so many avenues, and I feel like there's so many people that I admire where I'm like, oh, you didn't like direct your first movie until you were like, until you were like in your 40s or something. Like, and every job, like you said, is like a beautiful learning opportunity, and I feel like often the things that you do learn like surprise you. Like it's never what you feel like you're gonna go in and be like, yep, that's what I'm gonna get from it. Like it's always something.
I mean, and every time I do a project, I feel like the first day, I feel like I've never done this before in my life. I feel like I am a fish out of water and I have no idea what I'm doing, and until I feel like I do, it's over. You know what I mean?
Oh, no, it's like the last shot on the last day, and you're like,
comfortable. Just understanding why I'm here. But yeah, but that's I think what I love about what we do too. It's like it's every day that is never the same.
Yes.
You're always in for a treat and a surprise and a challenge that you didn't see coming, and you always walk away with something that you didn't expect walking into it. So
I feel like the best people though are the people who like. Last year was a very crazy year of like being in a show that I did not think people were going to watch because we like shot it in Chicago in the winter in like 2 months.
People don't normally watch things.
It's just more my feeling of like filming, and I got to
I hate watching things that were made in Chicago
in the winter. But I got to meet people who I was like, I never thought I would have a conversation with you in my life. And something that moved me so much was that I'm meeting these people who are, like older, people who in my mind are not even people, they're like figures. You have people like that where you're like, oh yeah, sure, Steven Spielberg, you're an idea. Like, he's a human person with a heart, but there was like curiosity and even people. Eben, who's on the show, I'm a girl's head, and I loved him. He's somebody who I'm always seeing in things, and I'm like, this guy, he knows. And then it's like I see him in between takes, and he's like practicing a monologue to himself, and he's like making sure he's on his game. He still has that nervousness. He still has monologue that's in the show or not in the show. Imagine. I'm like, no, just a monologue I wrote for him. Yeah, no, in the show. But just it's like, I don't know.
Really keeping
all the cylinders firing at once. But there's still just like a curiosity and a nervousness, and that really is like moving to me. Is there anything that you're like, this would be like my dream project or something I want to do next? Like, I want to work with a crazy foreign director. I want to do something where I'm shot out of a cannon, Mission Impossible style.
Yeah.
Listen.
That's the one.
Okay, you, me, Tom Cruise in space.
Write it. I got it. Think about it. It's funny. Yes and no. I never in a million years thought that my first film, or any film that I'd have the opportunity to make, would be a Western, or Shakespearean, or sci-fi. I've gotten to do projects that I just never would have imagined could even fit the bill of a dream project, because it just felt so far, like such a far reach that I feel like when I go to think about that question now, I feel like the possibilities are so beyond my knowledge at this point. And even though I feel like I've covered a bit, there's so much out there that I don't even know. I just can't wait to do something that I feel challenges me in a way that I haven't been yet. I don't know what that means, because I feel like I've been pretty challenged with my work. But just, I don't know, I'm entering a new phase of life, and this is a seat time job. You get better with experience, and I just love what I do so much. I think it's the coolest job in the world, and I can't wait to just do something that kind of rocks my world a little.
We have to, you gotta find the next thing that meets you.
That's
where
right.
you are.
That's right.
Have you, do you like to watch movies?
I do.
I didn't. Well, this is also partially me asking because I'm so interested in like how people spend their time. Like I feel like I don't know. There's people who are just like, oh, you are always like reading, or you like watching movies or whatever. But is there something that you've ingested recently, whether it's like music, movies, or book, or whatever TV show that's really like surprised you or moved you?
The bear.
Stop.
Not kidding. I've been playing a lot of catch up lately.
I'm behind on everything.
No. So here's the thing. You're not. Because if you know what I'm behind on, you will feel so far ahead.
Should I say, I finished Breaking Bad last year.
Oh, I haven't started it.
I was trying to make you feel good. I was really trying to make
There's nobody worse than me. I've got so much to catch up on. I just started watching Peaky Blinders.
You are behind.
But it's so good.
But it's good.
I was a little afraid of the reaction to that, if it was gonna be like, yes! It was like a rolling woo.
Yeah,
it was like,
oh!
yeah. But I'm behind, I know, but that, I think there's something kind of fun about watching something. How long has it been? How long did that first season go?
I do know what you mean, though. I do know what you mean.
After the fact.
Yeah. Well, you miss all the discourse. You just get to be like
100%.
watching.
Because it is so easy to get caught up in that.
Yes.
You don't even necessarily have to go too far to look for what's being said or what people are feeling, and it's just kind of there. And I don't love that.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of into it. I feel like I've just discovered something that no one knows about. It's pretty.
But that was how I felt with like The Sopranos. I watched The Sopranos and I was like, you guys, this show on HBO it's really got a lot of grit and but it's actually really funny. You probably didn't notice that it's funny. Everybody's like, we know that The Sopranos is funny. It's been off the air for 20 years. We know. We did all the conversation.
Totally, but you feel like you're in your own little.
Yeah, because you are though.
100%. That's nice. Is there anything that you've watched lately?
Ooh.
Love your letterbox, Io.
See, that's
Thank you. I kind of told you about that.
I did tell you about Letterboxd. I'm online a bit
I
too
need
much.
to-
I'm online a bit too much. Thank you, but also I'm sorry. Yeah, I recently watched this movie, and I actually think you would really like it. Called Past Lives. By this first-time director, Celine Song, and it's got Greta Lee, this Korean actor Tae Yoo, and then Michael Artuno, I think is how you say his name. But anyway, it's like this really crazy love story between these three people, and the main character is like this Korean woman who emigrated when she was really young, and so she kind of has like a distant relationship with Korea, her home country, but she has this guy who there's always been like a bit of a pull, and then time passes, she gets married, and then they get back in contact, and it's like this really beautiful, gentle thing, and it's like, I'm saying this plot, and any other filmmaker could have made it something very like salacious and like, oh yeah, Geronimo was slapping everybody in 5 minutes or whatever. That person probably shouldn't be making movies. That's the right movie. Yeah, we're slapping each other. That person is a scary person. But it's really like, it just, when it gets you, it's kind of shocking. And I was like, whoa. I was moved by that, because I was like, I thought this movie was so quiet, but it's really loud. Well, it's actually really loud because I'm crying. I'm crying in the theater and I'm hyperventilating, and that's why it's loud. Yeah. But that's my long recommendation for Past Lives. Yeah. Hit Pay 24. They'll give you a link.
Okay.
They'll give you a link, sure. Sometimes you just gotta ask for a link. You never know. What's the worst that happens? They say no?
You ask someone else.
Then you just ask someone else for a different link. Okay. Here's a random question. Of all the places that you've traveled, do you have one that's like a favorite? Or one that is like has a nice memory that sticks out? Should I end on a random one? Whatever.
Yeah, come on.
Hey, why not?
Tokyo might be one of my favorite places in the world.
Ooh.
I went for the first time when I was 14, and I just remember feeling like it was, so just unlike anything I had ever experienced, seen, felt in my life, and I was so drawn to that. I've since been back. My dream is to go on a non-work related trip and just like go with a group of friends and like get lost and sort of have no agenda, but just like immerse myself in the world and in the culture, and yeah, I love it there. There are so many places. I think that's one part of my job that I really love. Everywhere I've been in the world, my job has taken me there, and I don't know that I would have ever gone there if it weren't for that.
Yeah.
But that's something I would encourage anyone and everyone to do if they can travel. It is so life-changing, and I feel like it is one of the things that informs what I do so much. Life experience and just the joy you get from that, from the interaction around the world. And I don't know. My short answer is Tokyo, but I could go on about all these other places. But yeah,
Thank you. I haven't, and it's one place that I really do want to go, just because that feeling of just like I know it's just so different in a way that I know will be like so enriching. I love going to places and just being like, wow, there's almost nothing like in common, and yet like there obviously is, you know?
Right.
Like there's just like beautiful human connection, and like I went to London recently on a non-work trip. Okay. It was like my first like not work trip in maybe since I was like a kid, going to like Orlando with my family. So big step up. And I went and I did like the Tate, I think, or something, and I saw they have this artist, and he was doing these like weird abstract things, and I'm like, okay, I'll check it out, I'll come closer. And his name was Io. It was Io, and he's like this Japanese abstract artist who was working in like the 60s and the 70s, and I just was like, wow, okay, life is a poem. I just felt drawn to this piece of art, and me and this guy share a name, and everybody's like walking past me in this museum, and they're like, she's standing too close, back up, we want to look. But it was just this like beautiful moment where I was like, yeah, the world's big and small at the same time, it rules. Yeah. I want you to go on a vacation. I want you to go on a vacation to Tokyo. I'm setting the intention for you. I'm very good at manifesting things for other people. I am. I've never manifested anything for myself. I work very hard. But if I'm just like, yeah, Hailee, I want you to go on vacation in like the next 16 months. Is that too far?
way less, but I'll take 16.
I felt like if I did too short, you would be like, I could see you going to the calendar in your head.
Okay, so you're giving me a little bit of...
Yeah, I'm giving you a year and 4 months.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
We'll clear the schedule.
Perfect.
And I think the vacation is gonna be at least 2 weeks.
Wow.
That's why I'm giving you 16 months.
Okay, that's necessary.
Because if I 3-week vacation in 4 months, come on.
That's too stressful. That would cause me stress, which would feel like by the time I get there, I'm like not even wanting
Then you have
get
to
there.
take a week to just acclimate. Then the second week of vacation is stress. I'm not doing that to you.
Okay.
I'm giving you 16 months. Hey, I got you. I think we're towards the end of our time, but I'm so glad I got to talk with you. This was really actually genuinely like enriching for me, and I feel so lucky to know you. You're such a force and such a source of light, and you just want to put more good in the world and leave things better than you found them. And I'm very, very proud and happy to know you, and so I get to do this little chat.
Thank you.
For Tribeca Festival.
Oh, I enjoyed that.